In your university life, you will study the important course, calculus. Calculus is very important for your study. Why? Because the course is important. It is a general basic. Pay attention to. It is a compulsory course for the undergraduates. Major in science and engineering, business and economics. How about the course? We'll talk something about important and difficult points. Try to understand mathematical concepts and definitions. The definition is very important for your study in the calculus course. Why? If you understand the definition, you will study the theorem and properties. Try to understand the corresponding theorems and properties. Using the definition, try to understand the theorems and properties. It is very important for your application. And then, master calculation method. Give your question, you try to get the correct answer. How to get it? Through the accurate calculation. Carefully calculate. Finally, you will deal with practical problems. During the study of the course, you will study something, you will master something. For example, you can obtain the basic concepts, basic definitions, and basic theory and basic calculation skills for the one variable function calculus. The definition, for example, the definition of limit in the mathematical language. It is very important. Second, you can lay a theoretical foundation for the study of the next related mathematical courses, especially for the students majoring in mathematics. For example, statistics, differential equation, partial differential equation. And then you will lay a solid mathematical foundation for the study of the following courses of the finance, science, and economics, and engineering. We'll study the limits, and then we'll study corresponding derivative. In the chapter, pay attention to the corresponding definition, and then we'll study corresponding applications of the derivative, how to apply the definition. We study the definite integral in chapter 4, and then we study corresponding applications of the integral. What means application? In this chapter, everything will be studied by yourself. In chapter 7, we'll study techniques of the integration. Try to master the techniques. Lastly, we'll study corresponding improper integrals. How to understand what do we learn? You will study something. You will care about what will you learn. The next, we will introduce what we will study. So now, we will give you some circle. Try to tell how to learn. Look at the circle. In chapter 1, we'll study the limits. We study rigorous study of limits and corresponding limit theorems. In the study, you try to master the definition of limit in the mathematical language. Using the if-delta language, try to master the proof question, and then study the limits at infinity and the infinite limits. Finally, in this chapter, we'll study continuity of functions. About the definition continuity, try to remember and understand the 3 conditions. In chapter 2, we'll study the derivative. Study corresponding the rules for finding derivatives and the change rule. Remember, the change rule is very important for our future study. we will study higher order derivative, second order, the third order, until nth order derivatives. Try to find some regulation. In Chapter 3, we will study applications of the derivative. In this chapter, we will study maximal and minimal, local extrema and extrema under open intervals, and then, using the mathematical idea, try to deal with the practical problems, how to build up corresponding mathematical model. Finally, we'll study the mean value theorem for derivatives. In Chapter 4, we'll study definite integral. First, we'll study introduction to area, and then definite integral. Finally, we will study the first fundamental theorem of calculus and the second fundamental theorem. Pay attention to. We will study the method of substitution. Pay attention. The substitution method is very important for our future study. And then we'll study Chapter 5. The Chapter 5 we study applications of the integral. The chapter is very important. Why? We will use our knowledge to deal with some practical questions. For example, how to find the area of a plane region, how to find corresponding volumes of the solids, including slabs, disks, including slots of revolution shells, and finally, study the length of a plane curve. In Chapter 6, old knowledge have been studied by yourself in the higher school. And then we study Chapter 7. In Chapter 7, we study techniques of the integration, including basic integration rules. Integration by parts. What means by parts? Step by step. Try to remember the orders of U and V, and then study rational substitution, integration of rational functions. Try to using the partial fraction. Finally, we'll study the Chapter 8. We'll study improper integrals. Pay attention to the key word. What means improper? Before we study means proper. Improper, there are two cases. Case 1, infinite limits of the integration. Case 2, infinite integrants. And then study indeterminate forms and corresponding improper integrals. Study everything. During the study of the course, you will have the following learning ability. First, you will have the strictly logical thinking ability. For example, through the study of the definition of limit, you will master the definition of limit using the mathematical language, if-delt language, how to build up the relationship between if and delt. So you will have the logical thinking ability. And then you will have accurate calculation ability. In the study of the integration, you try to get the correct answer. How to get correct answer? Calculate by yourself. Calculate carefully. So you should have accurate calculation ability. You will have spatial imaginary ability. If you get how to get the area of some region, how to get corresponding the volume solid. And then you will have the solving problem ability. For example, how to get the biggest, smallest area for some given region, how to get it. You will have the analyzing and solving problem ability. How to learn. I will tell something about the learning method. For example, before class, you should preview. In your mind, you should know, I know what, I don't understand what. Try to find some questions in your book. using the question, go to the class, and then listen carefully in the class. Understand the definitions and examples. Especially for the definition, pay attention to every word, every letter, every symbol, and then you will know how to do the example. The example, what is our given condition? What is our result? After class, what to do? Review after class. Especially for the knowledge we don't understand, review after class carefully, and then you can do your homework by yourself. Why? I started the course in order to get a higher mark, so you will pay attention to assignment, homework 30%, final exam 70%, together 100%, so 100 marks. Now, let's study. Let's begin.